Maris, you're old now. Know your place. Sloane Whitaker said it straight to my face on the front steps of my son's house, her voice sweet as mine, but sharp as acid. She held out the Christmas seating book, flipped a page like she was flipping a verdict, then gave me a flawless smile. Look, which seat is for you? I looked down and my heart dropped straight onto the tile floor. My name wasn't there. Only Grant, Sloane, Claudette, a full table, everyone included except me. I turned to my son.
"Grant, say something." He wouldn't look at me. He just exhaled one sentence like a coffin lid clicking shut. "Mom, don't make things awkward." Sloane tilted her head, leaned in close to my ear. "And don't post on Facebook. I don't want you turning me into the bad guy." But right when I thought I'd been erased from the family, the hotel receptionist handed me an unmarked envelope. Inside was a screenshot of my post, a red pen scrawled across it. "Delete now." I recognized that handwriting.
Then on the flight, a stranger said my name perfectly. Maris Caldwell. I'm here because of Bo. If you were me, would you stay silent or flip the script? Want to hear how I shattered Sloane's plan? Hit subscribe and comment "Flip the script" down below. My name is Maris Caldwell, 66 years old, tan-skinned. The kind of American woman people call tough because she's gotten used to swallowing everything whole. I've been a widow for 7 years. I live alone in Colorado in the house Bo left behind, a house where the winter wind slipping through the cracks sounds like a sigh that never ends. Bo didn't leave me empty-handed. He left me a savings account, an emergency fund in both our names, and a will so clear it felt cold. I still have the right to manage everything as long as I'm still mentally sound. That was the line Bo repeated when he was alive, as if he could already see a day when people's kindness would depend on my signature. I keep the papers in a locked drawer, the key hanging from my neck out of habit, not because I'm suspicious, but because Bo once said, "Maris, sometimes they don't hate you. They just hate that you have power." I didn't think that power would become a thorn in my daughter-in-law's side. My son is Grant Caldwell. He's gentle, even too gentle, the kind of man who's always afraid of offending someone and ends up hurting the most important person in his life. His wife is Sloane Whitaker, a few years younger than him. Her words soft as velvet, but her eyes sharp as a thin blade. Sloane's mother is Claudette Whitaker, a woman with the presence of a courtroom, always as if she's weighing who deserves to sit where, who deserves how much love. I still tried to keep Christmas warm. I made cranberry sauce using Bo's old recipe, a glass jar tied with a red bow, and a box of ginger cookies. I wrapped a gift for my grandson, added a picture book because Sloane said the kid needed less screen time. I believed in those small things the way people believe in a tree, believe that golden lights can save a house from the cold. The day I brought the gifts to Grant's house, snow fell in a thin sheet. The road was slick, my tires crunching on gravel with a harsh sound. I didn't call ahead because I was afraid if I did, Sloane would produce some reason for me not to come. I even laughed quietly at myself for overthinking, still telling myself it was only the sensitivity of a widow living alone. The door wasn't locked. I knocked softly and pushed it open, the smell of pine and roasting meat mixing with Claudette's perfume, a scent so expensive it made other people feel like old furniture. The laughter inside stalled for exactly one beat. I took one more step and my heart dropped. On the sofa, there was a red throw blanket, monogrammed pillows, and Christmas stockings hanging over the fireplace. I scanned them automatically, the way you scan nameplates on doors to find where you belong. There was Grant. There was Sloane. There was my grandson's name. There was Claudette. There was even a name I'd never heard before, Rowan, the handwriting curling as if it were showing off. There was no Maris. I froze, the gift box in my arms suddenly heavy as stone. A cold rush slid from the back of my neck, down my spine, not from the snow. I
thought I'd misread, so my eyes flicked to the dining table. On it, a notebook lay neatly, the cover labeled Christmas Seating. Beside it, a stapled stack of papers, black print on white, orderly to the point of cruelty. I wasn't trying to snoop, but my eyes read on their own. At the top of the page was a line that made my throat tighten. Elder Capacity Evaluation, followed by bullet points like a test. Short-term memory, ability to care for oneself, emotional stability, susceptibility to influence. There was even a notes section, and there I saw my name, Maris Caldwell, as if I were a case file to be handled. Sloane stepped out of the kitchen. Her smile appeared right on cue, perfect, as if someone had pressed a button.
She looked at the gift box in my hands before she looked into my eyes. "Oh, Maris, you came early." Her voice was gentle, but the word early sounded like a mistake. Claudette sat in the armchair, legs crossed, her gaze sliding over me the way it slides over something no longer in style. Grant stood near the stairs, phone in hand, looking like someone who wanted to vanish inside his own home. I set the gifts down, trying to keep my voice normal. I brought something for the little one.
And some food. Sloane nodded her fingers, touching the box, and then letting go as if deciding where to put it so it would be out of the way. I glanced at the fireplace again, trying to convince myself my stocking had fallen somewhere, that I'd find my name tucked in another corner. It wasn't there. I heard my own voice go hoarse. "Sloane, where's my Christmas stocking?" Sloane didn't blink. She tilted her head like someone teaching a child that the question is silly.
"You don't have a seat." The sentence dropped cleanly, straight down, without explanation. I didn't react because my brain couldn't accept it yet. Grant stared at the floor. Claudette gave a smile without sound, only intent. I turned to Grant. I said his name once, like calling out the last thing keeping me from freefall. "Grant?" He inhaled, then let it out and said the words I would remember for the rest of my life. "Mom, don't make things awkward." Awkward. That single word turned me from his mother into a problem to be managed. I wanted to say, "My son, I'm not making anything difficult. I'm just standing here in your house with a box of gifts in my arms and my name erased from the mantel." But I couldn't. I only felt my ears ringing. I turned away, and in that moment, I heard them thinking I'd already stepped outside, or at least that I couldn't hear clearly anymore. Claudette said, her voice low and cold like she was discussing a price, "Push her into a capacity evaluation." Sloane answered at once, calm, as if talking about a dentist appointment. "All we need is for her to lose it a few times, and it's done." I stood there like I'd been nailed in place. The stack of papers on the table wasn't accidental anymore. It was a plan. A plan to make me look unreliable, to strip me of the right to manage Beau's fund, to turn me into an old woman who needed someone to watch her, so that every decision, every signature, every dollar Beau left behind would flow into someone else's hands, under the excuse of taking care of me. I backed out the door, legs weak, heart pounding like a drum. No one stopped me. No one asked if I was okay. Grant still didn't look at me. Sloane had already turned back toward the kitchen, as if I were just a commercial break in the main program. By the time I got to my car, I locked the doors and sat there for a long time. My breath fogged the window into a pale blur, like I was erasing myself from the world. My phone vibrated. A message from Sloane. "Don't resist. We already have a plan." I got home without remembering how I drove. The smell of snow still clung to my pant hems. My hands were numb even though the heater was on. I set the gift box down on the kitchen table. The red bow shifted to one side, the way I'd been shifted out of my son's world. I tried to make a cup of hot tea, but the boiling water slipped from the spout, splashing the back of my hand. The sting snapped me back into the moment, pulling a sharp breath from my throat. I stared at the reddening skin, then let out a dry laugh, the kind of laugh that sounds like someone asking, "What did I do wrong to be treated like a criminal?" My phone vibrated. I still thought it was Grant. Thought he'd call back, say he was wrong, say, "Mom, I'm sorry." But the screen showed Sloan. I hesitated for one beat, then opened it anyway, as if I were offering my wrist to be tied. The first message came in clean and poisonous. "Bo would probably be ashamed of you." I froze as if I'd just been slapped in the mouth inside my own kitchen. Bo, the man who'd been in the cold ground for 7 years, the man who used to hold my hand when I cried, the man who once wrote me a card saying I was home. Sloan used his name like a tool, dragged the dead out as a weapon, then drove it straight into the softest part of me. I started to reply, my fingers shaking. "Don't say Bo's name like that."
The words appeared, then vanished. I deleted them because I understood this wasn't a conversation. It was a hunt. I stayed silent, and immediately a second message came, as if she were standing right behind me. "The more you resist, the more you prove you're not okay." I sank onto the kitchen floor, my back pressed against the cabinet under the sink where Bo used to sit, fixing pipes, humming as he worked.
I stared at the tiles in front of me, where the Christmas ornament had shattered last night, a few small shards I still hadn't swept up. A cold thought rose in me. They didn't just want to kick me out of Christmas. They wanted to turn me into someone who no longer had the right to stand in the family, no longer had the right to hold Bo's wishes. My phone buzzed again, this time a call from Grant. I answered at once, like someone drowning grabbing a rope. "Mom," Grant said, his voice thin and rushed. "You're home, right? I wanted to ask, why are you calling to apologize or to check whether I'm losing it the way Sloan wants?" But I only said, "Yeah." Grant went quiet for a few seconds, then began speaking like he was reading a rehearsed script. "Mom, we think you should go get checked, just to be sure. You know, you've been stressed lately, everything." I tightened my grip on the phone.
"Who thinks that you or Sloan?" He faltered. "Mom, don't make a big deal out of it." I heard Claudette's voice faintly in the background, like someone standing behind him, feeding him lines. Soft, but enough to raise the hairs on my arms. Grant lowered his voice, and the next sentence slipped out before he could swallow it back. Her side made it clear, either you or her family. I stopped breathing, as if the kitchen had been sucked of air. I guessed they were forcing Grant to choose, but hearing it from my son's mouth still felt like being dragged into the street and abandoned. I asked, each word pressed down like a stone on a scale. "So what do you choose?" Grant spoke fast. "It's not choosing, Mom. It's just if you get checked, everyone will be calm. Sloan will be calm, her mom will be calm, then Christmas will be calm." Calm meaning I had to play the role of the problem so they could have peace. I gave a small laugh this time. Not dry anymore, but sharp. "Do you want me to get checked to prove I'm normal, or so they can have papers to prove I'm not?" Grant froze. I heard his breathing tighten. A second later, he blurted it out, quieter, like a confession. "Sloan said if you don't cooperate, they'll request a capacity evaluation. I don't want that to happen." My head rang. So it was true. The elder capacity evaluation papers I'd seen at his house weren't a coincidence. They were tracks already laid. I looked at the locked drawer where Bo's document sat, and I understood exactly where the target was. I said slowly, "Grant, listen to me. If you still see me as your mother, don't sign anything for me. Don't let them drag me into that game." Grant didn't answer. His silence stretched. Then his voice went weak. "Mom, I just want everything to be okay." I hung up before I could start crying. I didn't want Sloan to have another not okay moment to add to her file. I stood, wiped my face, and walked straight to my phone like someone who just crossed a line. I reopened Sloan's messages, took screenshots of every line. the timestamps, the number. I opened my email, created a new folder, named it with my own last name to remind myself I was still me, then backed everything up into it. I sent another copy into cloud storage, like hiding a small blade inside a coat during a snowstorm. I called Tessa Monroe. When she picked up, I managed only one sentence. "Tessa, they're trying to turn me into someone who's losing her mind." Tessa went quiet for one beat. Then her voice dropped. "Maris, listen, keep everything. Texts, emails, anything. Don't face this alone." I was about to answer when my computer chimed. A new email popped up. I glanced at the subject line and my heart pinched. A notice from the airline. My seat had been changed for operational reasons. I hadn't even opened the details when my phone buzzed again. An unknown number calling. It rang exactly 3 times, then went dead.
I left Colorado with one thought. If they wanted to turn me into someone who was not okay, I would step off the stage they'd already built. I chose Europe because there I could breathe. I could walk through crowds where no one knew who I was. I could listen to church bells instead of listening to people talk about capacity evaluations. The moment I set foot in Munich, I still hadn't sent a single message to Grant or anyone.
I stood in the baggage claim area watching the electronic board scroll flight names, reminding myself to stay calm. This was just a trip. My phone vibrated. Sloane's name lit up like a fingernail scraping across the screen. The first text came in cold as metal. "Is Munich cold, Maris?" I stood frozen, the chill from the airport floor creeping up my ankles. I hadn't told my destination to anyone, not a single person. I looked around, people rolling suitcases past me, the loudspeaker announcements echoing and fading. I read the line again, then again, like someone trying to find a crack, but there wasn't one. The second text arrived right after. "Don't think you can run. I know exactly where you are." My throat tightened. I shoved the phone into my coat pocket like I was stuffing away a hot coal, but my skin still burned. I pulled my suitcase off the carousel, my hand gripping so hard it hurt, my eyes scanning every face, every shadow reflected in the glass. I was scared, but what scared me more was the feeling of being pinned under an invisible eye, like I was a moving target on a map. I met Ingrid Keller at the tour's meeting point. Ingrid was the kind of person you remember after one glance. Sharp eyes, a steady voice. She greeted me, checked my name on the list, then handed me the hotel card. I tried to keep a polite smile, but my fingers were ice cold. In the hotel lobby, while I was signing the check-in form, Ingrid touched my elbow lightly and drew me a step aside, like professional reflex. She looked toward the glass doors and lowered her voice. "You're traveling alone, right, Maris?" I nodded. Ingrid continued. "There's a man standing over there. Since the moment our bus arrived, he's been taking pictures of you nonstop." I turned to where Ingrid pointed. Near a decorated Christmas tree in the corner of the lobby, a man in a dark knit cap held his phone horizontally, his gaze locked on me. When I looked back at him, he dropped the phone fast, then walked toward the exit, lifting his phone to his ear as he moved. I caught one sentence slipping through the lobby noise. "That's her." My skin prickled. Ingrid looked at me serious. "Do you know him?" I shook my head, my lips dry. "I've never seen him." That night, when I got to my room, I tried to tell myself I'd imagined too much. I took a hot shower, tried to rinse off the feeling of being watched, then picked up my phone to message Tessa that I'd arrived safely. Before I could type, a notification popped up. A DM from an anonymous account with a blank profile. The message was one sentence. "Are you traveling alone?" And with it, a photo of me in the hotel lobby, the exact moment I was pulling my suitcase and bending over to sign. The angle was low, my face clear, even the scarf around my neck. I stared at the photo until my vision swam, my heart pounding like it wanted to break my ribs. This was no longer a threat on a screen. This was a real person tailing me for real, close enough to photograph me like merchandise. I set the phone down and dragged my suitcase into the middle of the room. My hand shook,
but my mind turned sharp in a cold way. If Sloane knew where I was, there had to be a method. I knelt, opened the suitcase, peeled back the fabric lining at the bottom. My fingertips hit a small plastic piece taped down hard with black tape. I tore it free, and there it was, a compact device, an AirTag-type tracker stuck in place like a deliberate stain. On its face was a serial number.
I sank down, my stomach turning, and my mind clearing at the same time, because at last, I had the one thing that mattered most: proof. I turned on the camera, filmed a close-up of the serial number, filmed the full spot where it had been hidden, filmed the time on my screen. I sent it straight to Tessa with one line: "Tessa, they put a tracker in my luggage." I uploaded the video to the cloud, named the file with the date and Sloane's name, like stamping the truth. I looked at the screen and saw Sloane's text still sitting there. "Is Munich cold, Maris?" I didn't reply. I opened my notes app and started listing everything: the time, the texts arrived, the man taking photos, the anonymous DM, the device's serial number. I realized one thing: silence wasn't saving me. Silence was only making it easier for them to keep going. The next morning, I had to take a domestic flight to rejoin the group at the next stop. I sat in my seat on the plane, still holding my phone like a life raft. The man next to me lifted his bag into the overhead bin, then glanced down at the boarding pass in my hand, his eyes pausing for exactly 1 second. He looked up and asked softly, clearly, "Maris Caldwell?" The man beside me didn't repeat the question. He only looked at the boarding pass in my hand one more time, as if confirming it. I kept myself calm by keeping my gaze straight ahead, my mind running through every possibility. Rowan, the man taking photos in the lobby, a hired tail, another trap. I slipped the boarding pass into my bag, my voice low and cold. "Who are you, and why do you know my name?" He leaned in slightly, close enough to speak without anyone else hearing clearly. "My name is Stellan Cross." His voice was American, deep, clipped, without decoration. He pulled both hands out of his coat pockets so I could see he wasn't playing a game. "You have every right to switch seats right now. I won't stop you." That sentence made me pause, because people who mean harm tend to rush, and this man was offering me an exit. I didn't change seats, because I wanted to hear what he intended to do with my name. Stellan looked at me the way you look at someone backed into a corner, then said the first thing that snapped me fully awake. "They want you to be seen as incompetent." I swallowed hard. I'd suspected it, but hearing it stated like that still made my chest ache. Stellan continued, "It's the fastest way to strip you of your rights while dressing it up as compassion. They'll say they're worried about you. They'll call you a risk. They'll turn you into the problem." I stared out the plane window. Clouds stretched like torn cotton. I told him about the stack of papers at Brant's house, the words "elder capacity evaluation," the stocking without my name, the line I overheard from Claudette and Sloane. I told him about the AirTag taped under my suitcase lining, and the anonymous DM with my photo in the lobby. When I reached the part where Sloane texted, "Beau would probably be ashamed of you," my voice snagged like something sharp had caught in it. Stellan didn't look sympathetic. He nodded slowly, as if fitting pieces into a map. "This is a deliberate plan," he said, "and you're being criminalized in a very familiar way. They provoke you into reacting, then they record that reaction as evidence. They corner you, then they label you unstable." I turned to him. "So what do I do when they already have someone tailing me?" Stellan answered immediately, clear and direct. "Collect evidence legally, so when you speak, they go silent." He listed each step like a checklist. Keep the original texts with timestamps, save the DM with its link, photograph the tracker's serial number, alert the hotel about a stranger requesting your information, and most important, send a copy to a trusted third party so the evidence can't disappear if your phone is compromised. I said, "I already sent it to Tessa." "Keep doing that," Stellan said, "and add another layer.
You can send it to Beau's family lawyer or someone who has handled the estate. They're after the assets. You need to lock the door with the law. That made me go cold because it hit the place I feared most. I thought they only wanted me erased from Christmas. Stellan was reminding me they wanted more than that. They wanted me erased from the ownership of my own life. I studied Stellan more closely, searching for the signs of a liar.
He was steady, eyes bright, but not cruel. The kind of person who'd seen enough ugliness to understand that calm is a weapon. I asked the question I'd been holding since the moment I boarded. Why are you helping me? Stellan didn't rush to answer. He looked down at his hands for 1 second, then lifted his eyes. I owe Beau a promise. Hearing Beau's name from a stranger made my blood run cold. My chest tightened, as if someone had opened an old door inside the house of my memories.
You knew Beau, Stellan. Nodded. I knew Beau in a way you'll understand when you're ready to hear it. He paused like he was trying not to overload me. For now, you need to get through the next step and keep your rights. The plane landed and I followed the stream of people out, my mind taut like a wire. Stellan didn't crowd me. He walked at a distance, just close enough that I knew he was still there, but not so close that it felt like pressure.
When I arrived at the hotel at the next stop, the receptionist called me back, her face slightly pale. "Miss Caldwell," she said, "someone just called claiming to be your family, asking for your itinerary for the next few days." I stood at the front desk hearing the words family and feeling my spine go cold. I asked for the caller's name. The receptionist shook her head and said they hadn't left one. They had only stressed the word family as if it were a pass. Stellan looked at me, his eyes reminding me of what he'd said on the plane. Someone was trying to build a cage around me. I texted Tessa right away, telling her about the call, asking for my itinerary. Tessa replied fast, told me to screenshot the hotel's call log if possible, asked the receptionist to write down the time and what was said. I did, and the moment I got back to my room, my phone felt like it had been dragged into something filthy. Messages, notifications, familiar names suddenly turning strange. A family group chat I'd stayed quiet in for a long time suddenly exploded. I opened it and saw Claudette had joined. She sent a long message, her tone fake concerned. "Everyone, Maris hasn't been okay lately. Don't trust anything she says or posts." Right after came a flood of sad emojis, prayer hands, then sentences that landed like nails. "Poor thing. That's old age. Let the younger ones handle it." I read the line, "Maris isn't okay, don't trust her," and felt like my voice was being taken away. When someone gets labeled unstable, every protest becomes proof of instability. Sloane understood this game better than anyone. She didn't need to prove I was wrong. She only needed people to believe I was unreliable. Grant texted me privately, hesitant. "Mom, why are you saying crazy things to everyone?" I stared at his message and heard Sloane's voice behind it, like someone standing behind a curtain, putting words into my son's mouth. I answered short, "I haven't said anything." Immediately, Grant sent a screenshot, a Facebook post under my name, the wording messy, over-emotional, like someone out of control. I looked closer. It wasn't mine. My account had been used, or someone had made a near-perfect copy to smear me. My heart hammered. I opened Facebook and saw comments flooding in from people I'd nodded to at church, from the volunteer group, from neighbors. Some asked if I needed help. Some said I should rest. Some flat out told me to stop bothering my family. Sloane had fired the story into the community like tossing bait into a school of fish. Before I could breathe, my phone rang. It was the familiar number of the place where I volunteered every week, where I'd packed canned food and wrapped gifts for the homeless. The manager spoke in an awkward voice. They'd received a complaint call saying I had caused a disturbance, that I had threatened others, that I was unstable. They asked me to pause my participation until everything was clear. I ended the call and sat on the edge of the bed, feeling like someone had yanked the rug out from under me. Sloane wasn't just going after my rights. She was cutting me off from every anchor: family, church, community, the places where I belonged. When a person is isolated, They're easier to define. Tessa called back, listened as I told her, then swore, very American, and said, "She's building a social file on you, Maris, the kind a judge will believe fast." I asked, "How do I stop her?" Tessa said, "Evidence and speed. You have to stay one step ahead." Right then, Stellan texted me one line. "They'll pressure Grant to sign a care paper." I hadn't even typed back when Grant's message came in, his tone exhausted. "Mom, Sloan says I should sign a document so she can take care of you, so everything can be calm." I stared at the screen, feeling my hands go cold. A care paper sounds harmless, but in Sloan's mouth, it was the key to the cage. I typed, "You absolutely cannot sign," then stopped, because I realized if Grant was asking, Sloan had already put the pen on the line. The hotel room doorbell rang. I stood, walked over, and looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty. On the floor in front of my door was a white envelope, placed neatly like something meant to be seen. I bent down to pick it up, and on the envelope there was only one line of handwriting, Maris Caldwell. I held the envelope like I was holding something filthy. The paper was thick, the seal neat, the handwriting careful in a way that felt cruel. I locked the door, pulled the curtains, and only then tore it open. Inside there was no long letter, just a printed page and a screenshot of a Facebook post under my name, slashed with a red pen stroke that looked like a cut. The line on the page didn't bother with subtlety. "Delete now. If not, you lose everything." I finished reading and set the paper on the desk, my palms slick with sweat. Lose everything here wasn't just reputation. It was Beau's fund, my right to sign everything they were trying to take by turning me into someone unstable. I photographed the envelope, photographed the faint smudge of fingerprints along the edge, photographed the handwriting, then saved it into the folder I'd created, like driving another nail into the coffin of truth. There was a knock at the door, fast, steady, the kind of knock from someone confident it would be opened. I stayed still for a beat and looked through the peephole. Rowan Pike stood there, phone in hand, smiling politely, like we'd known each other a long time. I didn't open it fully, only cracked it enough for the chain to catch. "What do you want?" Rowan lifted both hands, voice gentle. "I saw you in the lobby the other day. You look like someone I know. I'm sorry if I startled you. I'm a photographer. I want to take a picture of you free, a souvenir of your trip." I stared straight into his eyes. "I don't need it." Rowan kept smiling, his eyes flicking down to the phone in my hand. "Just one photo. You have nothing to worry about. Give me your phone. I'll take it for you. Better angle." I understood instantly. He didn't want to photograph me. He wanted my phone. Those fake posts had already appeared. My account was being targeted, and now a stranger stood outside my room asking to hold my device like it was asking for my house key. "I can take my own," I said, and moved to shut the door. Rowan put his hand on the edge of the door, just enough to stop it while still looking polite. "You're so tense. Look, I'm only trying to help." In the hallway, Ingrid Keller was walking past. She slowed, eyes on Rowan, then on me. I caught Ingrid's look and opened the door a little more, enough for her to hear. Rowan lowered his voice, softer, like he was soothing a child. "Unlock it for me. I'll take it and give it right back. Then you post it. Show people you're okay." I gave a thin smile. "Do you want me to post, or do you want me to disappear from my own account?" Rowan hesitated for a moment, then switched tactics fast. He pulled out his own phone. "Or use my phone. I'll take the picture, then I'll send it. You won't have to hand me yours." It sounded reasonable, but I saw his hand tremble slightly, like someone in a hurry. Ingrid stepped closer, standing beside my door, her voice calm but sharp. "If you're a photographer, why are you taking pictures of guests outside their rooms?" Rowan smiled. "I'm just trying to help." Right then, my phone buzzed. A strange login notification popped up, asking for a verification code. Before I could react, Rowan leaned in to look at my screen like a reflex. Ingrid heard the buzz, stared at Rowan, and I saw her lips move. Where's the OTP? Those two words fell like a stone. I snapped my head toward Ingrid. She'd heard it too. Rowan immediately stepped back, half a pace, the smile on his face going stiff. Another voice cut in, deep and clipped. That's enough. Stellan Cross appeared at the far end of the hallway, walking straight toward us, his phone already recording. He positioned himself at an angle that captured Rowan, the envelope in my hand, and even the license plate of a car parked outside, visible through the lobby glass below. Rowan tried to smile again. It's a misunderstanding. Stellan didn't argue. He said one sentence, like a stamp. You just tried to get her verification code to take over her account. Rowan turned and walked fast, like he wanted to slip out of the frame. Stellan followed 2 steps, still keeping distance, still filming, clearly. Ingrid spoke loudly enough for the hallway to hear. I heard him ask for the OTP right outside her room. Rowan hit the elevator button. The doors closed, and I could still see the strange smile on his face through the narrowing gap, like someone who knew he hadn't lost yet. He was just retreating. I leaned against the door, my heart pounding, my hand gripping the envelope. Stellan lowered his phone, looked at me, then said quietly, clearly, "Now we just need to know who paid him." I had barely caught my breath after the Rowan incident when my phone buzzed again, this time with a notification from my doorbell camera back home in Colorado. I've kept that system since Beau died, a way to reassure myself that the house still had eyes to see. The screen showed my front porch, gray sky, a dusting of snow, and 2 police officers standing on my steps. One of them raised a hand and pressed the bell. The other looked around, eyes sweeping toward my neighbor's car parked along the curb, as if making sure there would be witnesses. The camera angle made everything look like a scene from a movie I didn't get to cast. My home turned into a site, and me into someone who needed to be checked. I opened the 2-way audio, my voice rough with strain. What is this about? The officer leaned toward the camera, his tone polite but firm. Miss...
The other looked around, eyes sweeping toward my neighbor's car parked along the curb as if making sure there would be witnesses. The camera angle made everything look like a scene from a movie I didn't get to cast. My home turned into a site, and me into someone who needed to be checked. I opened the 2-way audio, my voice rough with strain. What is this about? The officer leaned toward the camera, his tone polite but firm. Miss James? I bit my lip, forcing my voice to stay steady. I can verify my identity by phone, but I'm not there. Please note that this report is false. The officer beside him shifted and said, "We'll document it, but we still have to make sure no one inside needs help." As he spoke, a neighboring door opened. My neighbor, the woman who greets me most mornings, stepped outside in a thick coat, eyes curious. She stood in her yard watching the officers, then staring toward my house. I understood immediately this was exactly what Sloan wanted, a scene just vivid enough for people to whisper, "Maris has problems. The police had to come." The officer continued, "We'll record that you're out of the country. We'll check the exterior, but if we believe someone is inside and at risk, we may have to enter." I stared at the screen at my front door, sitting closed and silent, and felt humiliation rise, the kind that doesn't need an audience in person to sting, because it crawls into your future, into gossip, into people's eyes tomorrow. I said, "The house is empty. You can check outside, but please don't break the door." They nodded and walked along the porch, peering through windows. My neighbor remained planted there, arms folded, as if tucking this story into her pocket to carry off and share. I wanted to scream into the camera that I wasn't unstable, I was being hunted, but I knew the harder I reacted, the more I'd resemble what they wanted to file away. The moment the camera feed went dark, my phone immediately received a text from Sloan. She wrote like she was sending a holiday card. "I'm only worried about you. Who would believe you now?" I read it, my hand tightening until it went white. That sentence was a blade aimed at the one place that mattered, trust. Sloan wasn't targeting me alone. She was targeting people's ability to believe me,
because when a person loses credibility, the truth becomes useless. Before I could reply, a link dropped into the family group chat, followed by Claudette's message. Everyone watch this. This is why we have to intervene. I tapped it and heard an audio clip, my voice warped, chopped, stitched into lines that sounded panicked, like I was threatening myself, like I was out of control.
I recognized fragments of things I'd said to Grant, but what they posted had been edited with precision. They used my pain as a prop to justify calling the police, then used the police as proof, a closed loop so tight it felt like a noose. Tessa called right away, swore, asked if I was okay, slamming into my ribs.
Stellan walked into my room like he'd expected this. He looked at my phone screen, listened to the clip, then said flatly, "This is spliced." I looked at him. "I know, but who will believe that?" Stellan sat down, his voice low, certain. "I have a way to get the original file with metadata to prove it was cut and altered." I was about to ask how when my phone buzzed again, an unknown number calling, and this time it didn't hang up.
The unknown number called. I put it on speaker and set the phone on the table. I didn't speak first. I wanted whoever was on the other end to reveal themselves. A man's voice came through, trying to sound steady. "Miss Caldwell, I'm calling to verify a few things for your safety." The phrasing was smooth, like someone used to speaking as an institutional representative. Stellan looked at me and signaled to hang up. I did, then wrote the number down and took a screenshot of the call log.
Stellan said, "They're building a trail. The more concern calls they stack up, the easier it is to sell the story that you need a guardian." I nodded, my chest heating with anger, but my mind turning clearer. I was beginning to understand their rules, and to understand that I had to answer with the one thing they feared most: data. Stellan pulled an old envelope from his bag, paper yellowed with age, the corners worn, and on it was handwriting I recognized instantly: Bo. Stellan said, "They're building a trail. The more concern calls they stack up, the easier it is to sell the story that you need a guardian." I nodded, my chest heating with anger, but my mind turning clearer. I was beginning to understand their rules and to understand that I had to answer with the one thing they feared most: data. Stellan pulled an old envelope from his bag, paper yellowed with age, the corners worn, and on it was handwriting I recognized instantly: Bo.
Maris, if you're reading this, it means you're being forced to shrink yourself to fit someone else. Don't. You don't have to ask permission to be respected. If anyone tries to label you a burden, remember, you're the one holding my promise, holding our home, holding your dignity. Don't make yourself smaller. I got to that line and my tears dropped onto the paper. It wasn't the kind of crying that makes you weak. It was the kind that straightens your spine. Because I could hear Bo as if he were right beside me, reminding me I wasn't crazy. I was being pushed under. I wiped my face, folded the letter carefully, and looked at Stellan. "I'm going to confront them." Stellan nodded. "But confront them with evidence, not emotion." We started locking everything down in order, like hammering in nails one by one.
It wasn't the kind of crying that makes you weak. It was the kind that straightens your spine, because I could hear Bo as if he were right beside me, reminding me I wasn't crazy. I was being pushed under. I wiped my face, folded the letter carefully, and looked at Stellan. "I'm going to confront them." Stellan nodded, but confront them with evidence, not emotion. We started locking everything down in order, like hammering in nails one by one.
I pulled up my video of the tracker's serial number, the photos of where it was hidden under the suitcase lining, then saved another copy to the cloud, set it to read only, sent the link to Tessa, and sent another copy to the family lawyer who had handled Bo's paperwork. Tessa replied right away, "You're doing it right. Don't let them touch Bo's fund." The last step was money. Stellan said, "Rowan works for money, and money always leaves a trail."
He called Ingrid, asked her to recall Rowan's license plate, the time he left the hotel, and every detail Rowan had slipped on. Ingrid sent us the plate photo she managed to capture while Stellan was filming the hallway. Stellan used that plate to trace the rental information, and from there, he obtained a copy of a payment receipt Rowan used to book services. The sender's name hit me like a slap. Claudette Whitaker. No more fog, no more guessing.
There was an amount, a time, a sender, a recipient, a trail. I stared at Claudette's name on the receipt, my throat going dry. I had heard her say capacity evaluation, the way you talk about merchandise, and now I could see her hand in the money that made it real. Stellan set his phone down and looked straight at me, his voice firm. Go back to the U.S. on December 24th. End it in front of the Christmas tree. I was about to ask what the plan was when Tessa texted one short line that made my heart jump. Maris Grant is getting ready to sign the papers. I returned to the U.S. with a clarity that felt almost cold. Tessa picked me up, held me tight for a moment, then let go quickly, like she was afraid emotion would soften me. Stellan didn't walk beside me like a guardian. He kept the right kind of distance, so I understood this was my fight. I had to stand in the center of the light. I texted Grant one short line. On December 24th, be at home. I need to talk. Grant replied a few minutes later, Mom, don't make a scene. I read it and almost laughed because they'd made a scene with police, with rumors, with files, and all I needed was a table and the glow of the Christmas tree. That night, I stepped into Grant's house, the scent of pine and candles, just like every year, but I was seeing everything with different eyes. Over the fireplace, the stockings hung in a neat row, and this time there was an extra one, blank, tucked at the end like a last-minute patch. Claudette sat waiting in the armchair, wineglass in hand, watching me like a court about to convene. Sloane stood beside Grant, outfit perfect, smile designed for a camera frame. When I walked in, she said, "You're back, Maris. Good. We can talk like adults." Her voice was gentle, but I could hear the steel under it. I set my bag down, looked at everyone, and said my first sentence. If you want me here, respect me. I spoke slowly so each word could stand on its own in that room.
From today on, I won't go anywhere I'm treated like a burden. Grant looked at me, his eyes wavering, shame and fear mixing together. Claudette's mouth tightened, and Sloane gave a small smile, as if I had just performed right on cue. Sloane walked to the table and pulled out a stack of papers already clipped together, laying them in front of Grant like a menu. She said, "Sign it for your mom."
From today on, I won't go anywhere I'm treated like a burden. Grant looked at me, his eyes wavering, shame and fear mixing together. Claudette's mouth tightened, and Sloane gave a small smile as if I had just performed right on cue. Sloane walked to the cable and pulled out a stack of papers already clipped together, laying them in front of Grant like a menu. She said, "Sign it for your mom."
Protect me or lock me up with paperwork. I turned to Sloane. You want me to be not okay, so you can sign for me, don't you, Sloane? Kept her smile. You're imagining things again. I started breaking the chain, link by link, without shouting, without pleading. I only needed the truth in order. I opened Sloane's text and read the exact line. Is Munich cold, Maris? Then the next. Don't think you can run. I cast it onto the TV screen so everyone could see the timestamp and the number. I showed the tracker device, the serial number photos, the video of me peeling it from the suitcase lining. I played the hallway video, Rowan outside my door trying to keep my phone, Ingrid clearly saying, "Where's the OTP?" Stellan filming the license plate. Ingrid had agreed to join by video call, and she appeared on the screen and confirmed her words in front of everyone. I pulled up my doorbell camera footage, the police at my Colorado house, the welfare check question. I read Sloane's message that arrived right after, "I'm only worried about you. Who would believe you now?" Claudette's grip tightened on her wineglass, her eyes flashing, but she didn't speak. I opened the edited audio file they'd posted, then opened the metadata Stellan had extracted for me,
showing the modification timestamps, the cut marks, the jumps. Finally, I set the transfer receipt on the table, the sender's name clear, Claudette Whitaker, to Rowan Pike, the amount, the time, the trail. The room went silent, like the sound had been pulled out. I looked at Grant, my voice small but steady. "Do you still want to sign?" Grant held the papers, his hand shaking. He looked at Sloane, looked at me, then looked down at the blank signature line on the last page.
His eyes darkened like he had just understood something he didn't want to understand. Grant lifted his head and stared straight at Sloane, his voice rough. "You wanted to lock my mother up with paperwork?"
Grant's question landed like a blade, not loud, but sharp enough to freeze the whole room. Sloane stood still for a few seconds, then laughed, the laugh of someone used to controlling the frame and believing she still had a way out. She reached for Grant's shoulder, her voice turning soothing. "Listen to your mom. She's making this up."
Grant's question landed like a blade, not loud, but sharp enough to freeze the whole room. Sloane stood still for a few seconds, then laughed the laugh of someone used to controlling the frame and believing she still had a way out. She reached for Grant's shoulder, her voice turning soothing. "Listen to your mom. She's making this up."
I answered, "Which family? Mine or the one you're trying to swallow?" Sloane whipped toward me, and her eyes finally showed what she'd been hiding. "You're destroying my family." She said it like she was shouting at me in front of the Christmas tree, where the warm lights were blinking, reflecting off the ornaments like watching eyes. I replied, each word falling slow. "No, you're trying to take my right to live."
I answered, "Which family, mine or the one you're trying to swallow?" Sloane whipped toward me, and her eyes finally showed what she'd been hiding. "You're destroying my family." She said it like she was shouting at me in front of the Christmas tree, where the warm lights were blinking, reflecting off the ornaments like watching eyes. I replied, each word falling slow, "No, you're trying to take my right to live."
Sloane switched, instantly turned to tears, turned to victim. "You're choosing her over me." Grant shook his head. "I'm choosing the truth." That sentence made my throat tighten because I'd waited too long to hear it. Tessa already had a line ready with the lawyer, and Stellan sent every piece of evidence in the right format with timestamps, sources, witnesses.
Ingrid signed a statement about the OTP. The hotel footage confirmed Rowan in the hallway. The transfer receipt carried Claudette's name. The metadata proved the audio was spliced. Once it was filed, Sloane's performance ran out of stage. The consequences fell faster than she expected. Grant filed for divorce, and this time Sloane couldn't hide behind the word family to cover her ambition. Her company opened an internal investigation because the harassment and hired surveillance had been exposed, and the result arrived like a slap. She was terminated with a notice she could no longer represent any community program. The court issued a restraining order. Sloane was barred from texting, calling, or approaching me within a set distance. She received a sentence of 18 months probation, 120 hours of community service, fines, mandatory counseling, and an anger management program. Claudette didn't escape either. 12 months probation with fines for transferring money to hire Rowan. Rowan received a 6-month suspended sentence, fines, and a no-contact order in exchange for turning over his data and full testimony. After all of it, Grant came to my house one quiet afternoon without excuses. He stood in front of me, eyes red, and said, "Mom, I left you to face it alone." I didn't forgive him with words right away.
I looked at him for a long moment, then said, "You fix it with actions, not apologies." Christmas night passed, and I no longer felt erased. I stayed in my house, opened Beau's letter again, read the line, "Don't make yourself smaller," then folded it and placed it in the locked drawer, like placing a vow. My phone buzzed, a message from Stellan.
Next Christmas, Vienna or New York? I replied, anywhere. I'm loved the right way.
I hung a new ornament on the tree, engraved Maris, and said to myself, this Christmas, the bad ones paid. And me, I begin again.
I hung a new ornament on the tree, engraved Maris, and said to myself, this Christmas the bad ones paid, and me, I begin again.